Now, has Russia been spying on leading figures in the UK? That's the accusation being made by the British government, which is pointing the finger at the Russian security service, the FSB. What's been taken? Well, emails and other online documents. How is it done? Often by creating false online accounts impersonating trusted contacts. And how much has been taken? Well, according to UK sources, vast amounts. Who's been targeted? According to the UK government, politicians, civil servants, those working for think tanks, journalists, academics, and others in public life. And why? Well, to destabilise democracy and undermine the West in various other ways. Russia has consistently denied similar allegations in the past. Let's talk live now with Professor Rory Cormac, who specialises in the study of covert action and secret statecraft at the University of Nottingham. Professor Cormac, thank you for joining us on the programme. The UK and Russia are hardly old allies here. Surely this is to be expected. This is just an occupational hazard, no?
Well, it is to an extent, but it's more than spying. It's the influence. We kind of accept that states spy on each other. You know, it's as old as statecraft itself. What we're seeing here, the allegations are about going beyond just, watching and hacking and listening, and actually seeking to interfere and to manipulate and destabilize our democratic processes. And that is a really quite serious allegation, although not one that will surprise many Russia watchers, it has to be said.
A serious allegation, as you say, but the British government has said that these attempts were unsuccessful. That's key to this, no?
It is, and that's what really struck me about this. I mean, Western governments have been exposing Russian covert operations and interference for a good few years now, and I think that's the right thing to do, particularly if you want to hold Russia to account and impose sanctions or indict people. But what I think is slightly new here is this concerted effort to point out the failure of these Russian operations. And I think that's a good move. It's important because if we expose these operations without saying they failed, then we kind of give the impression of seemingly sophisticated activity. And this plays into Putin's hands in two ways. First of all, exposure without saying it failed gives the impression that he is some sort of master of the dark arts of international statecraft. And secondly, exposing without pointing out the failure risks doing Putin's dirty work for him, because we end up undermining our own democratic institutions by spreading this idea that that maybe electoral outcomes are the consequence of Putin's meddling, when otherwise they might not be, which ends up undermining our own trust in elections. So I think it's a really important thing, if you're going to expose, to point out that this stuff was blunt, it failed. Otherwise, we end up playing into Putin's hands.
As you mentioned, Russia has denied this. It's denied similar accusations in the past. What's the longer-term political fallout of this?
It's been going on for quite some time now, and Russia seems to get away with it. It seems to do what it thinks it can get away with. And, we'll see sanctions. We've seen expulsion of intelligence officers in the past. We've seen diplomats being summoned for stern words from the foreign secretary. But ultimately, this kind of activity will carry on, even though it is not particularly secret, for as long as Russia thinks that the benefits of doing so outweigh the costs of being called out. So exposure is only one aspect in how the West should be dealing with this. We should also be working to disrupt Russian operations behind the scenes. And then we should also be doing more long-term building of media literacy, for example, so that the wider public, when these things get hacked and leaked and get amplified through untrustworthy sources, are able to digest that. And I think that's an important role of universities, of civil society, of arts and humanities degrees, and all that kind of thing. It's an important package.
We're up in arms here. This is grabbing the headlines today. Are we really to be naive enough to believe that the British and American and other governments are not also spying on Russian officials at the same time?
I couldn't possibly comment. All highly classified. I would hope very much that the West are engaging in espionage against Russia. We know that Russia is a target of Western intelligence. We know that the West has been spying on Russia, particularly around the invasion of Ukraine. We saw some really interesting and genuinely unprecedented intelligence exposés by the British government and the US government to demonstrate Russia's war plans and to expose and frustrate some of its potential false flag operations it was going to use as a justification for Ukraine. So, we see the intelligence battle playing out, and clearly the West is engaging in intelligence operations against Russia, yes.
OK, Professor Rory Cormac, shining some light on those spooks in the shadows. Professor Cormac, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.